Let's get into it. Sermon on the Mount book, Great Teachers of Jesus Christ, written by R.T. Kendall. I'll be in chapter 28 tonight, this morning, December 12th, 2025. Let's get into it, man. Let's get into name dropping. Matthew chapter 5, verse 33 to 37. Let's get into it. Again, you have heard that it was said to the Lord people ago, do not break your oath or keep the oaths you have made to the Lord. I tell you, do not swear at all, either by heaven, for it is God's throne, or by the earth, for it is his footstool, or by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. Do not swear by your head, for you cannot make even one hair white or black. So let your yes be yes, and open your anything beyond this comes from the evil one. Let's get into it. So in this chapter, Jesus talked about change the subject. Why do we name drop? So R.T. Kendall started the chapter with, in the early stage of this chapter, he talks about to make the person look good, whose name we bring into a conversation, or to make ourselves look good. Why do we name drop? To make the person look good, whose name we bring into the conversation, or to make ourselves look good. Jesus now changes the subject. He has interpreted the sixth commandment, then the seventh. Now he refers to the third commandment. You shall not misuse the name of the Lord your God, for the Lord you will not hold anyone guiltless who misuses his name. He does not quote the third commandment, but summarizes it with a number of Old Testament passages. Numbers chapter 30, verse 2. When a man makes a vow to the Lord, takes an oath to obligate himself by a pledge, he must not break his word. He must do everything he said. Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 13. Fear the Lord your God, serve him only, and take your oaths in his name. You might have quoted the ninth commandment. You shall not give false testimony against your neighbor. Exodus chapter 20, verse 16. Yet he is not referring to the ninth, but rather to the third. This section is our Lord's treatment of the third commandment summed up. Do not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. Why does Jesus take this approach? Because first, he's concerned about the honor of God's name. Second, he shows how easily we can grieve the Holy Spirit by our language. Like everyday conversation, even so-called pious talk. Thirdly, he shows how easily we can let the devil get in when we talk too much. Simply let your yes be yes, your no be no. Anything beyond this comes from the evil one. Fourthly, Jesus shows how it is to use God's name to make ourselves look good, rather than make God look good. Fifthly, he shows how we may further indeed pass rights to the Pharisees who use God's name to make themselves look good. They did not think in terms of extolling the honor of God's name, but focus only on themselves. Background of oaths and vows. Why make a vow? Why swear an oath? If one swore an oath, you could be sure it was the truth. One made a vow, we count on it being fulfilled. But in the ancient times, you could be sure one was telling the truth. One swore an oath. It put an end to an argument. If you made a promise, one may or may not believe it. But if you swore an oath or made a vow, one always believed it. One did not violate the oath. Oath and vow were used interchangeably. An oath or vow was a guarantee that what was promised would be made good. A promise may or may not have been reliable, but the oath, when you say I swear, is an absolute guarantee that the promise will be kept. How was the oath carried out? An oath was executed by appealing to a greater authority as to God himself. typical oath was, I swear by God Almighty. Even those outside God's covenant might say, I swear by the gods, but the oath was regarded as totally reliable. Reliable. One may swear by laying the left hand on the Bible and taking his right hand, as when the President of the United States takes an oath for office in his inauguration. On a less solemn occasion, you might hear people say, I swear on my mother's grave. Any language that will convince the other that one is telling the absolute truth. That's the purpose of the oath then and now. The Old Testament not only did not prohibit the swearing of an oath, it commanded and encouraged it. Indeed, take your oaths in his name. There was, however, a warning. Be sure you tell the truth. Do not swear falsely, or profane the name of your God. Not only that, when a man makes a vow to the Lord or takes an oath to obligate himself by a pledge, he must not break his word, but must do everything he said. Therefore, we have this warning. When you make a vow to God, do not delay in fulfilling it. He has no pleasure in fools. Fulfill your vow. It is better not to vow than to make a vow and not fulfill it. Moreover, do not later protest and say, my vow was a mistake. Why should God be angry at what you say? It's therefore a problem that Jesus would say, I tell you, do not swear at all. We saw how Jesus' view of divorce could be contrasted with Moses' conversion and concession concerning it. Now it seems to be going right against Moses. Jesus was more or less forced to take an oath before the high priest, who said to him, I charge you on oath by the living God. Tell us if you are the Christ, the Son of God, in order to show respect for the Lord. The high priest, Jesus replied, yes, it is, as you say. But I say to you, all in the future, you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the Mighty One and coming on the clouds of heaven. God is my witness, Romans chapter 1, verse 9. I call God as my witness that it was known to spare you that I did not return to Corinth. I assure you before God that what I am writing is no lie. It says, God is our witness that he did not wear a rags to cover up grief, that you are witnesses, and so is of God. How holy, righteous, and blameless we are above you. Yet God shall wear hope. But because he could not swear by a greater, as there is no greater, he swore by himself, I swear by myself, declares the Lord, that because you have done this, and have not withheld your son, your only son, I will surely bless you. God promised David on oath that one of his descendants will sit on his throne. God can swear an oath in mercy, as he did to Abraham, or in wrath, or as he did to the children of ancient Israel. I declare an oath in my anger. It shall never enter my rest. One of the aims the writer of Hebrews sets before us is that God might swear an oath of mercies to us. Why would he do this? So that we might be fully assured of his word. He might have put the onus on merely to believe what he has written, and he certainly does that. But some occasions, he accommodates our weakness by giving us an inner testimony of a spirit that's so powerful we can say, we know that we know. It's a wonderful thing. God swears an oath to you. Is when he lets you know unmistakably, conditionally, irrevocably, infallibly, when he thinks. Popular assumption you have heard. There was respect for the Lord, and it was well known that one did not break an oath in ancient times. Once the name of the Lord, Yahweh, was mentioned, it meant you brought God in. The ancient Jew had deepest respect for that name. Once his name was invoked, it became a debt to be paid to none other than Yahweh himself. If a person owed money, he brought in God's name for his assurance that his word would be kept. If a person owed money, his debt creditors wanted assurance the debt would be paid. He said, I swear to you, by the name of the Lord, clear felt good. And knowing he would surely get his money from that moment. For the debtor, it was like having to pay God himself. But the word, bringing in the oath was perfectly just. It was absolutely right to do. As long as one told the truth, he kept his word. So far, so good. But people begin to look for a loophole, something we have seen before. especially when it comes to legalistic matters. Was there a way of avoiding payment after all? Always look for loophole. And the Pharisees did this. They did it? How is how the excuse me? Here is how they did it. Use the rationale that circumstances have altered cases. There was increasing feeling that perhaps you should not bring in the name of the Lord. They began to swear by heaven instead of by earth or by Jerusalem. That was a loophole. This way. It was slightly less serious if you did not keep your word. So by that mean how close the earth was tied to the name of the Lord determine whether or not it was absolutely nothing after all. In ancient times, there was a commentary called the Mishnah. A whole section was given on oath to oaths, including what were binding, which were not. You would have thought that an oath was an oath. But this is the way legalistic people get around the law, by looking for those loopholes. So if you swear by Jerusalem, you are not bound by your vow. If you swear toward Jerusalem, you are bound. The swearing oaths degenerate to silly rules and showing when you can get away with lying and when you can't. Swearing eventually because a king was justifying for lying. In case for lying, there on Jesus said, the Pharisees woe to you, blind guides. You say, if anyone swears by the temple, it means nothing, but if anyone swears by the gold of the temple, he's bound by his oath. You blind fools, which is greater, the gold or the temple that makes the gold sacred? Jesus pointed it out. But who swears by heaven swears by God's throne, by the one who sits on it, showing the hypocrisy, the inconsistency of their thinking. But the ancient Jews came up with categories. Each one being removed slightly further from God's name, so they might swear by heaven. But this is not so binding. Or the oath of Jerusalem. They would even swear by their head, which is why I was saying, as far as I know, I hope I will be able to do that. And the word even oath ceases to mean much. Jesus' application of the third commandment, I tell you, Jesus said, do not swear at all, it's by heaven, but it's God's throne by the earth, for it is footstool or by Jerusalem. For it is the city of the great king, and do not swear by your head, for you cannot make even one hair white or black. This was obviously the day before people dyed their hair. This was once again going beyond the law. The law encouraged and required oaths. Jesus said, don't swear at all. Do we follow Jesus by the letter or by the spirit? And when do we apply this literally? Above all, James said, my brothers, do not swear. Swear, not by heaven or by earth or by anything. There are those who go by the letter, such as Quakers. They take the words, do not swear literally, and will not take the oath in a court of law. They say it's a matter of conscience for them. This does not refer to taking an oath in a court. There are several reasons Jesus' words in James cannot possibly apply in a court of law. Jesus is talking about everyday conversation, not when you are commanded by the state to testify. The reason for taking an oath in a court is to respect the law. It's not using an oath to vindicate yourself or make yourself look good, which is what Jesus is against. In a court of law, you have involuntarily been put into a situation you must respect. Secondly, if we are never to take an oath at all, God ourselves would not have required this in ancient times. God laid down legislation when oaths should be taken. This, moreover, was an Old Testament practice. And Abraham sent his servant to find a wife for Isaac. Abraham put your hand under my thigh, he said. I want you to swear by the Lord, the God of heaven, and the God of earth, that you will not get a wife from my son from the dwellers of the Canaanites. The Canaanites. Jacob asked Joseph to swear to him that he, Jacob, would be buried in Canaan. Thirdly, when Jesus was required to swear whether he was the Christ, Son of the living God, he respectfully replied to the solemn charge of the high priest. Jesus had refused to vindicate himself until the high priest said, are you not going to answer? And commanded Jesus to say whether he was the Christ. Fourthly, it was a custom practiced by the apostle Paul, as we saw above, who wrote by divine inspiration. Finally, the marriage vows are under oath and honoring God. So who wants total fidelity in in marriage? The vows for richer, for poor, and sickness, or in health, are part of the Christian marriage ceremony. We take them to ensure that we will be faithful. Jesus is referring to everyday conversation. We are not to bring in God's name to make ourselves look more credible. We are to keep our word without having to swear oaths or make vows. Jesus said, do not swear at all. Keep God's name out of it. And don't swear by heaven because it's God's throne. Don't swear by earth because it's his footstool, his creation. This will eliminate one from saying, I swear by my mother's grave, which will be swearing by creation or earth. Don't swear by Jerusalem. In the Greek, you cannot tell whether it is by Jerusalem or to Jerusalem. But with Jesus, it would not matter. Do not swear at all, he says. As for Jerusalem, we should not use God's city in order to tell the truth anyway, without appealing to the city of the great king. As for swearing by one's head, don't say, as far as I know, I will do it. I will do my best. But if all goes well, you cannot make your hair white or black. God knows the future, and he will determine when you are gray-headed. Jesus saying simply let your yes be yes and your no be no. Anything beyond this comes from the evil one. Chapter 5 verse 37. Looking at this advice positively, Jesus saying, let your word be your bond. Don't resort to God's name or any authority. Let every word you say, be simple, straightforward, and honest. Don't speak evasively but plainly, having leaving people in no doubt what you really mean. Speak without as being complicated. Looking at Jesus' advice negatively, what does it mean? Some think that the command not to misuse the Lord's name or to take it in vain, it means swearing, cursing, or using bad language. It would include that, but that does not mean to touch what Jesus wants us to grasp. God told me, really? First, it means don't vindicate yourself by appealing to or using God's name. People do this when they claim to be sure they are right, and they want others to know that God knows they are right. So they drag his name in. It is dishonoring to him when you use his name like that, especially if you're dealing with an enemy. When we have an enemy, we are not allowed to say, God is on my side. Leave God's name out of it. When it comes to defending yourself, that is what Jesus is teaching in this section. God behind the scenes saying, I am on both sides, so please leave my name out of it. Or what if it is a situation like Joshua, kind of when he saw the angel with the drawn sword and asked, are you for us or for our enemies? God replied, neither. This applies in family relationships too, as well as in business or other personal relationship. This is extremely important when giving someone a prophetic word. Suppose you believe you have a valid word for someone, and what if it really is from the Lord? You want him or her to believe is a solid, untrustworthy word. The huge mistake nearly every prophetic person under the sun makes is to say, Lord told me. I sometimes think God looks down from heaven and says, really? It's the worst kind of name dropping. I realize you are only wanting them to believe God has spoken. The reason you are using God's name is so they will take your word seriously. You may not realize it, but chances are you are not doing this to make God look good. You are misusing his name, appealing to that name to make yourself look good. Incredible. That delivery is one of the main ways we take the take the name of the Lord in vain. If you have a good word, it may truly be from the Lord. You don't need to name drop. I don't mean to be unfair, but it doesn't matter, not matter who you are or however awesome your prophetic gift is, you treat it to be. Simply say to people, if you believe you have a good word, I have a word for you. You can think about it. If the word is truly from the Lord, they will see this without you're having to pave the way for bringing that glorious name in. This way, you have protected God's name. Also, you won't have egg on your face if that word turns out to be not so accurate. Secondly, you don't casually talk about God to impress another with your piety. Want to cringe when I hear people say, Lord told me this, Lord told me that. This again is not making God look good. You only want to impress people with your piety. Don't, but be careful when publicly using talk, such as the Lord has been so real to me today. Go slow on this kind of talk, unless you are speaking to someone who already has your trust. But to go public with such language, oh, I love the Lord so much, his presence is so real, God has been speaking wonderful things to me. Who are you trying to impress? You may think you are bringing glory to God when you talk like this, but I lovingly caution you, the heart is so deceitful. On the Jeremiah chapter 17, verse 9. But we need to be painfully honest with ourselves and realize that this praise talk almost always comes from people who are trying to impress. They have something to prove that they are close to God. The truth is, the greatest freedom is having nothing to prove. By the way, if you really have been close to the Lord, his presence is real, let God cause others to see it. When you take it on yourself, you misuse his name. Thirdly, don't resort to the use of his name when you are under pressure or being mistreated. This is the situation James addresses. They were workers in the field who had been mistreated by their Christian employers. Their employers had not paid them their wages, so they cried out to God. James shows them that God knows what is happening, but he nonetheless counsels those have been abused in so many words. Don't bring in God in and claim he is on your side. He says to them, above all, my brothers, do not swear, not by heaven or by earth or by anything else. Let your yes be yes, your no be no, you be condemned. Now, James chapter 5, verse 12. God is not in the respect of persons. James assures these unpaid workers that God is on their case, but cautions them that if they bring in God's holy name to boast of their case, God will actually turn on them as well. In the word, don't name drop God. When you misuse God's name, Satan gets in. Anything beyond this, instead of speaking simply about that your yes be yes, comes from the evil one. Do not take this closing phrase from the devil lightly. Do not be quick with your mouth. Do not be hasty in your heart to utter anything before God. God is in heaven. You are on earth. So let your words be few. And the words of many sin is not absent, but he who holds his tongue is wise. The devil looks for an entry point. When we are falsely accused, we may be tempted under pressure to make ourselves look good and bring in God's name as though he were on our side. Don't do it. You will give occasion for the devil to move in. You will regret it. Jesus never defended himself. Even when he was blank, he did not open his mouth. He was crucified in weakness, a chosen posture. He was in fact strong. He takes great strength to keep our mouth shut. It appears as if we are very weak. We are under pressure. Oath-taking could be protesting too much. However, to say, the Lord told me, is not only name dropping, it betrays our own insecurity. Question is, will I be willing to be misunderstood? Will I allow vindication to be delayed in order for God to look good? If we really want to please God, we will keep ourselves out of the picture by using or misusing God's name when our big egos are involved. We simply should refrain from using God's name to make ourselves look good. Otherwise, we are not careful, Satan will get in the picture. Anything beyond this comes from the evil one. Right, so I'll be in chapter 29 on Monday. Matthew chapter 5, verse 38 and 39. I've heard that it was said, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. But I tell you, do not resist the evil person. Someone strikes you on the right cheek, turn to the other also. Right, that's it. Now, let's get into the ultimate NBA history book, What If Book, Volume 2. The ultimate NBA history and What If book, Volume 2. This is about Minnesota Timberwolves. Let's get into it. You look at the Minnesota Timberwolves, there's one player that really defined the whole franchise. That's no doubt Kevin Garnett. Make case he's the greatest player to ever play for the Timberwolves. I don't think that's any dispute with that. You talk about a franchise defined by a player as Kevin Garnett. His intensity, his passion, his drive definitely made the franchise what it was. Let's get into it, man. How the Timberwolves was born. Minnesota Timberwolves was born. Here's the backdrop. On April 22nd, 1987, after 27 years without an NBA franchise in Minneapolis, since the Lakers were in Minneapolis, once they moved to Los Angeles in 1960, Steve was granted an expansion NBA franchise. They were one of 4 cities granted a new expansion franchise, along with Orlando, Miami, and Charlotte, while the Miami Heat, Charlotte Hornets, began play 1988-89 season. The Magic Minnesota franchise didn't begin play until 1989-90 season. Now, the franchise had a name, the team contest, was led to 2 finalists, the Timberwolves and the Polars. All 842 city council members in the state of Minnesota were asked to select between the 2 nicknames, and Timberwolves were the clear winner. On January 23rd, 1987, the Minnesota Timberwolves were born. And that name for the team, as there is a larger population of Timberwolves in the state of Minnesota than in the other 47 contiguous states. The first player on the Minnesota Timberwolves franchise through the expansion draft was former Detroit Pistons forcer, fresh off his first NBA title, was Rick Mahorn. He refused to report to Minnesota and was instead traded to Philadelphia. A rough start. The Wolves were given the number 10 pick of the draft in 1989 for the NBA draft and selected Pooh Richardson out of UCLA. The point guard would spend 3 accepted seasons in Minnesota. But here are the players who were taken in 7 picks after Richardson and underrated draft class. You had Nick Anderson, Ricky Blaylock, Michael Smith, Tim Hardaway, Todd Litchi, PhD, Dan Barrow, Sean Kemp. This would be the first of many personnel mistakes for the Timberwolves. They went 22-60 in their inaugural season in 1989-90. Tony Campbell led the team with 23 points, 22.2 points a game. Tyrone Corbin, Sam Mitchell, Pooh Richardson, and Todd Murphy was the core players on this team. So in 1990, they draft Fulton Spencer from the University of Louisville, the center, who will be a bust, unfortunately, and spent 3 seasons in Minnesota, averaging 6 points, 6.64 rebounds per game. So from 1990 to 91, they finished in the second season, 29-53, where Richardson made the biggest leap in his second NBA season, after 17.1 points, 9 assists, 3.5 rebounds, 1.6 steals, impressive 47% shooting from the field. The Wolves decided to take Corbin to the Jazz for Thurl Bailey early into the 1991-92 season. Very similar core. Took a big step back. 15-67 was the record. Now, despite having the odds for the number 1 pick in 1992, the right to draft LSU phenom, future NBA megastar Shaquille O'Neal, the Timberwolves fell back to number 3 in the draft lottery, on the Atlanta Magic at number 1 and the Charlotte Hornets at number 2. In one of the cruel twists of fate, what was viewed as a 3-star draft with Shaq, Lonzo Mourning of Georgetown, Duke legend Christian Laettner, Minnesota would end up with the one guy who wouldn't pan out and have a Hall of Fame career, and that was Christian Laettner at number 3. The Wolves decided to rebuild around Laettner and trade their 3 best players in the first 3 seasons of the 1992 offseason. They dealt Richardson Mitchell to the Indiana Pacers for Chuck Person and Michael Williams, and Tony Campbell to the New York Knicks for a future second-round pick. So despite Laettner having a very productive rookie season, averaging 18.2 points a game, 8.7 rebounds a game, 2.8 assists a game, mostly a roster mostly of NBA journeyman, finished near the bottom of the NBA standing once again at 1963. Despite having the second highest odds of the #1 pick in the 1993 NBA draft, the Wolves were extremely unlucky yet again, falling back as far as they could in the draft to number 5. So the Wolves missed out on franchise-altering talents like Chris Webber, Penny Hardaway, and took UNLV shooting guard Isaiah Ryder, the number 5 pick. The Laettner and Ryder was seen as nice duo of the future, a dream that never really came to fruition. So they were the team's leading scorers in the 1993-94 season. Laettner led the team in scoring with 16.8 points, 8.6 rebounds per game. Isaiah Ryder made all the rookie team, averaging 16.6 points and 4 rebounds. Ryder was flexing a lot of ability, but his maturity issues and status as a 12 defender, some presenting some red flags for Minnesota. So the Timberwolves struggled again, finishing 20-62 and received the number 4 pick in the draft in 1994. They fell back one spot in the 1994 draft lottery, preventing the Wolves from being able to draft Laettner's former college teammate, future NBA superstar Grant Hill. Instead, they selected UConn forward Donyell Marshall. Minnesota traded a future first-round pick, turned to Kevin Cato in 1997, productive Rockets young big man Sean Rooks. And they also decided to cut bait on Marshall midway through to his rookie season, swapping him to fellow young forward Tom Gugliotta. Ryder became Minnesota's go-to player, leading scorer in the second season, averaging 20.4 points a game. The Wolves seemed to admit struggles through those losing 60 games or more for the 4th straight season, the 5th time in their first 60 seasons. 21-61 was their record. Now, the Wolves fell back in the NBA history yet again, 1995, entering with the 3rd odds at the number 1 pick and the number 5 pick of the 1995 NBA draft. This will work to their benefit, though. It will lead to them drafting the franchise's first true franchise cornerstone NBA superstar, and that is Kevin Garnett. Kevin Garnett starts the pro era in the NBA in 1995. Kevin Garnett became just the 4th player in basketball history to be drafted straight out of high school in 1995. It was the first time a player was directly drafted from high school since 1985 with Darryl Dawkins and Bill Willoughby. Sean Kemp was a year removed from high school in 1989. He started a revolution of players entering the NBA draft directly from high school. Most notably, Kobe Bryant 1996, Tracy McGrady 1997, Mark Starman 2002, LeBron James 2003, and Dwight Howard 2004. So self-explanatory, about Kevin Garnett and things that he did coming out of high school. that was real, unique at that time. He was able to just, deliver the goods and be legit. His rookie year, he averaged 10.4 points a game, 6.1 rebounds a game, 1.6 blocks per game. As a rookie, and the Wolves finished 26 and 56. So the Wolves ended up with the number 5 selection in the absolutely loaded 1996 NBA draft. Now, during that season, 95-96, Kevin Garnett played with Sam Mitchell, Terry Porter, Tom Gugliotta, Isaiah Ryder, and Christian Laettner. So, 1996 draft, you had the best players in this draft. Kobe Bryant, Steve Nash, Allen Iverson, Ray Allen, Ben Wallace. He was undrafted. Stephon Marbury, Peja Stojakovic, Jermaine O'Neal, Twain Walker, Marcus Camby, Sharif Abdul-Rahim. 10 of these 11 guys made an NBA All-Star appearance in their career. Marcus Camby made it All-NBA defensive team 4 times over successful 17 NBA seasons. Picking at number 5, it was hard for the Timberwolves to go wrong. And they didn't. Selecting Hall of Fame shooting guard and NBA all-time 3-point shots leader Ray Allen. The in vogue thing to do to build an NBA roster, an inside-outside duo of the future at the time was to pair an elite big man with an elite point guard. Many of the NBA's greatest teams of preceding years featured, other than the Bulls, featured a dominant point guard in the center, a power forward combo such as Orlando Magic, Shaq and Penny, Hardaway, Utah Jazz with Karl Malone, John Stockton, Phoenix Suns with Charles Barkley and Kevin Johnson, the Seattle Seahawks, Sean Kemp, and Gary Payton. The Timberwolves still had a talented, young, and immature shooting guard in Isaiah Ryder, and another point guard, their point guard of the future to pair with Kevin Garnett. And it was Stephon Marbury, who was easily seen as the best and most gifted true point guard in the draft. The Wolves traded the rights to Ray Allen, the 1998 first-round pick in exchange for Marbury, who the Bucks selected at number 4. As a result of this United Sound, just over 2 weeks later, the Timberwolves got their 1998 first-round pick from the Bucks in exchange for Andrew Lang. They also decided to cut bait with Isaiah Ryder that summer, trading him to the Trailblazers for Real Curley, James Robinson, 1997 first-round draft pick. Ryder had been a problem behind the scenes for Minnesota since the moment he joined the organization. He literally showed his first NBA practice. He was pulled over for possession of marijuana while the trade with Portland was going through. Right, so they had rebranded and rejuvenated team. They ditched the original uniforms and color scheme logo. They had the Mavericks vibes pre-Dirk Nowitzki's Mavericks. So they changed their uniforms with a black and cool new font for the jerseys, black trims to the jersey and pants that feature trees. Kevin Garnett, 20 years old at the time, averaged 17 points, 8 rebounds, 3.1 assists, 2.1 blocks. And then Stephon Marbury, 19 years old at the time, averaged 15.8 points, 7.8 assists in his rookie year. They were very entertaining, rash, popular duo in the league. They was viewed as becoming the next Shaq and Penny. Garnett was named an NBA All-Star in just his second NBA season. Tom Gugliotta was also had the best season of his career, averaging 20.6 rebounds, 20.6 points, 8.7 rebounds, 4.1 assists, making his NBA All-Star appearance. There's only one. They had a breakout season. They won 40 games, lost 42. They were number 6 seed. They got swept by the Houston Rockets, led by Charles Barkley, Hakeem Olajuwon, and Clyde Drexler. The following season, in 97-98, the third season, Kevin Garnett averaged 18.5 points, 9.6 rebounds, 4.2 assists, 1.8 blocks, 1.7 steals. Stephon Marbury averaged 17.7 points, 8.6 assists. Gugliotta led the team in scoring again halfway through the season with 20.1 points per game. He went down due to unfortunate ankle injury. So won his last 7 of the last 8 games with a core of Garnett, Marbury, Sam Mitchell, Anthony Pillar, Chris Carr, Cherokee Parson, Terry Porter. So Garnett was becoming a two-way force. Marbury, while his athletic combination of ball handling, athleticism, strength and quickness. They won 45 games, the first winning season in 9-year existence. Became a 7th seed, won their first ever NBA playoff game on April 26, 1998. The Suns lost to the Minnesota Timberwolves 98-93 in Seattle. Marbury had 25.7 assists. Terry Porter had 21 points. Anthony Perry had 8 points, 14 rebounds. And Kevin Garnett had 15 points, 8 rebounds. Timberwolves used an all-around performance to beat the Sonics in Game 3 of so to take a 2-1 series lead, putting the Sonics on the brink of elimination. Marbury struggled mightily from the field in Game 4, shooting 4 of 16. They blew a chance to win their playoff series. They lost 92-88 and losing the series, unfortunately, to the Sonics 97-84. Then Stephon Marbury was gone. They had to be 2 around Garnett. Minnesota allowed Goodell to sign to finish some of St. Suns during the NBA lockout in 1999. Stephon Marbury requested a trade from Minnesota in order to play in the larger market, be the star of his own team. It was a different world in 1999 in the NBA. The league wasn't yet the fraternity AAU-centric culture that it is today. Guys weren't using their power as free as to team up with one another to win. They would rather be the guy and the highest paid in their own city, in their own franchise. So Marbury didn't see the inherent value in playing alongside a bigger star like Garnett in a smaller media market. Remember, this was before social media and really the internet boom, so market size played a much larger role in players' decision making in terms of maximizing their value and exposure off the court. He thought he was better suited to be the guy in a place where he could make more money and prove his greatness on his own. So it's also possible that Marbury and Garnett couldn't put egos aside because they didn't like one another. No one would make mistake Garnett for being warm and cozy. We'll find out later with Marbury, he wasn't exactly a picture of predictability or dependability in his own right. The fact of the matter is that Marbury was never played with a player as supremely talented again for the rest of his career. And Garnett would never play with a guy as supremely talented as Marbury for the remainder of his career and his time in Minnesota. They have grown together and won Minnesota NBA title in 2000, we'll never know. So the Wolves traded Marbury 18 games to the lockout shortened season. That landed them point guard from the Bucks at the time, Terrell Brandon, the 1999 first round draft pick that would become Wally Zerbiak. So Garnett, Brandon, free agent signing, Joe Smith, Pillar, Mitchell, Dennis Scott had the core that led to a 25-25 record during that strike shortened season, the lockout season. So overall, they made it to the playoffs as the 8th seed, but they lost to the Tim Duncan and the Spurs in 4 games. And they're selecting Miami of Ohio small court Wally Zerbiak. So in 1999-2000 season, Minnesota Timberwolves became a 50-win team. It was the first 50-win in franchise history as far as the season is concerned. And Kevin Garnett was the big ticket. He averaged 22.9 points a game, 11.8 rebounds a game, 5 assists, 1.6 blocks, 1.5 steals. Made the All-NBA first team for the first time, finishing second in MVP voting to Shaq. Brandon had 17.1 points a game, 8.9 assists, 1.9 steals, shooting out 47, 40, and 99. Zerbiak, all rookie seed, had 11.6 a game, 8.7 rebounds a game. They lost to the Portland Trail Blazers in 2004 games. All right, that's it for that. Let's get around a little bit. I'll read everything. We'll get to that. What if? What if you drafted Shaq? So I'm getting to that real quick. Had Chauncey Billups, Fonzo Ellis the following season, 2000-2001 season. Went 47-35, 8th seed. They lost to the Spurs again. In 2002 season, 2001-2002 season, Phillips was the starter. While Zerbeck was had his best season. Kevin Garnett had averaged 21, 12, and 5. Won 50 games again. Second time in history. Number 5 seed. They lost to Dallas. Got swept. In 2003, Kevin Garnett won an MVP award in the NBA All-Star game. In his prime, averaging 20 points, 13.4 rebounds, 6 assists, 1.8 blocks. Finishing second MVP next to Tim Duncan. He became, just at the time, the third player in NBA history to lead his team in all 5 traditional statistic categories: points, rebounds, assists, blocks, steals. They lost to Kobe Bryant and the Lakers. 6 games. In 2004 came, they were able to get to the Western Conference Finals. Kevin Garnett won the league MVP. Had a new core of Kevin Garnett, Sam Cassell, Trell Sprewell, Robbie Zerbiak, Trenton Hassell, Olowu Kandi, Fred Hoiberg. Hudson, and Mark Madsen. So they was able to get to the conference finals, but they lost to the Lakers. Rightfully so, the Lakers was loaded. They beat the Sacramento to advance. Beat the Nuggets, so they was able to get far in the playoffs. First time franchise history gets to the conference finals, but they lost to the Lakers. Lakers was loaded. Obviously, they had Karl Malone, Gary Payton, Shaq, and Kobe, so that was a really tough, tall order. Tried to knock them off. Things go south for the Wolves, and Kevin Garnett requested to leave the team. Wolves trade Sam Cassell for Marco Jaric to the Clippers for Marco Jaric. First round pick in 2012 was to become Austin Rivers. Lionel Chalmers. Had a losing season, 33-49. Then he was 32-50. Then he made the trade Kevin Garnett on July 31st, 2007. So the Boston Celtics for Al Jefferson, Ryan Gomes, Gerald Green, Leo Ratliff, Sebastian Telfair, and 2 first-round picks in 2009. They waived Troy Hudson, traded Ricky Davis, Trenton Hassell, Mark Blunt, and separating deals at Landon, Antoine Walker, Michael Doliak, Wayne Simeon, and another first-round pick in 2009. So had Kevin Love come to the team 2007-2008 season. Not without a trade, though. They had a number 3 pick. They selected O.J. Mayo, USC, traded his rights there along with Jaric, Walker, and Greg Buckner for the rights to number 5 pick UCLA power forward Kevin Love, Mike Miller, Brian Cardinal, and Jason Collins. So Minnesota became just the second team in history to have first round picks in the draft, one draft in 2009. And they selected Ricky Rubio and Johnny Flint, overlooking Steph Curry. Could have drafted him, but they didn't. Rubio was a prodigy at the time, internationally, coming out of overseas from Spain. So that's why they went with him. They thought he was going to be, Pete Maravich. But then, obviously, didn't work out. Obviously, that's for Johnny Flynn. He ended up being a bust, unfortunately. Caesar was, his career was cut short in his mid 20s. Had hip surgery. He's out of the league. Wasn't as good. Just want to skip this and keep moving. Like I said, I'm gonna keep moving. Skip everything. Get to the what if. What if the Timberwolves drafted Shaq in 1992? What if that happened? Shaquille O'Neal is a top 10 player in NBA history, according to this person's estimation who wrote the book. The question is, what would it look like if the Timberwolves drafted Shaq in the early to mid 90s instead of Christian Laettner? Christian Laettner being replaced with Shaq on the 1992-93 Timberwolves team that featured Doug West, Chuck Person, Michael Williams, likely boosted from 19 to 30 plus wins, based solely on Shaq's presence alone. He averaged 23.4 points a game, 13.9 rebounds a game, 3.5 blocks, and was the rare rookie named an NBA All-Star, leading a slightly superior Magic roster to a 41-41 record. Minnesota probably would finish 33-49. He was with Minnesota. They would give them the number 7 pick in the 1993 NBA draft, but they would likely take Vin Baker to pair the front court with Shaq instead of Isaiah Ryer, who took in reality in number 5. Let's say they signed David Wesley instead of New Jersey, and enters the next 93-94 season with Shaq, Baker, Doug West, Mike Brown, Michael Williams. Shaq and Baker gives the Wolves the most exciting young front court in the duo in the NBA. They sneak into the playoffs in 1994 before upsetting the Seattle Supersonics. The Wolves then lose to the Jazz in the second round in 1994. Minnesota ends up with the number 13 pick in the 1994 NBA draft as Denver in reality. It's like the Timberwolves as the Nuggets did, but A.B. Johnson probably will be the floor general moving forward. In the next 94-95 season, you got starting lineup Johnson, West, Rose, Baker, Shaq, McDavid, Wesley, Sean Brooks, and Mike Williams off the bench. They go to 53-29. Number 5 seed in the Western Conference. They beat the Sonics once again in 5 games. As Seattle has no answer for Shaq and loses to the Spurs in 7 games in the Western Conference semifinals as Shaq. David Robinson have an epic battle. Robinson is able to survive Shaq and the Wolves. Minnesota ends up with the 24th pick of the NBA draft in 1995. And Michael Finley, who was taken 21st that year instead of Kevin Garnett. So you have Johnson, Finley, Rose, Baker, Shaq. Going to the next 95-96 season, they finished 58-24. They're number 3 seed in the Western Conference. They sweep the Blazers and beat the Spurs in 6 games. They face off with the Supersonics in the 1996 Western Conference. Shaq has the best series of his career to that point. John Rose breaks out. Van Baker plays with Even with Sean Kemp, the Timberwolves win the series 6 games to 1996 NBA Finals, reaching the 1996 NBA Finals. So they played the Chicago Bulls, who won 72 games. So we got a lineup with Avery Johnson, Michael Finley, Jalen Rose, Vin Baker, and Shaq versus Harper, Johnson, Jordan, Pippen, Robin, and Longley. The Bulls were clear on a mission to be the greatest team of all time that year 95-96. But few teams in the NBA could have even hold a candle to the Bulls team. But even if there would be a bad matchup for those 90s Bulls teams, it would be a prime Shaq, who has any prayer of stopping him on those Bulls teams. Shaq has an all-time great NBA Finals series, averaging over 40 points. Was with the experience of championship medal with Bulls, led by prime Jordan Pippen, be too little much, and they pulled away win Game 7 in Chicago 88-73. This is where the alternate reality ends for Minnesota, much as he did to Shaq, he did to Orlando. Shaq crushed the hearts of Minnesota fans by leaving to go to the Lakers in summer 2006, ending a budding Timberwolves dynasty on the brink of an NBA title. Shaq becomes public enemy #1 in Minnesota for the rest of his career, and the Bulls never end up with Kevin Garnett. They get closer than they ever have to an NBA title in 1996, though. Here are the possibilities and outcomes. What if? Let's get into the breakdown. #1, Shaq is drafted #1 to Minnesota Timberwolves. So Magic in 1992. Shaq and Penny, Magic never exists. Minnesota ends up with Vin Baker instead of Isaiah Ryder in the 1993 NBA draft. The Timberwolves win their first NBA playoffs series in 1994 instead of 2004. Minnesota Timberwolves face off of the legendary 1995-96 Chicago Bulls in 1996 NBA Finals. Come within one game of pulling off the NBA's greatest championship upset. Minnesota never drafts Kevin Garnett in 1995. Shaq still leaves for Los Angeles in the summer of 1996. And Shaq becomes the most hated athlete in the state of Minnesota, more so than Brett Favre or Aaron Rodgers could ever be. Right, so that's it. I'll be in the next team to talk about the New Orleans Pelicans from this NBA history book, What If book, New Orleans Pelicans. What if I do the what if? What if Anthony Davis and Zion Williamson were teammates in New Orleans? What if Anthony Davis and Zion Williamson were teammates in New Orleans? That'll be talked about on Monday. New Orleans Pelicans. That's it for today, man. Hopefully you enjoyed the Sermon on the Mount. Talk about name dropping. Read from chapter 5, verse 33-37. Being waiving our rights. Read from Matthew chapter 5, verse 38-39, chapter 29. So not book and not being a what if. Ultimate NBA history and what if book. Talk about the New Orleans Pelicans. That's it. Thanks for tuning in. Keep subscribing to the channel. Best yet to come. Talk to you on Monday.